Hey everybody, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Ethan. I'm an astrologer who makes a podcast every week called the Astrology with Ethan podcast, and I cover a wide variety of topics on astrology and divination that give more of a broad overview of astrological principles, ideas, and reflections. Well, this video is a little bit different today because it's not technically part of my podcast. It's going to be uploaded to my YouTube channel directly as a source to inform and educate you on a subject in depth that relates to the birth chart. And I'm going to hope to do more of these and focus on today's theme, which is the houses. The house today we're looking at is the 12th house. So the 12th house, we are going to be looking at through the prism of every planet that you could potentially have in the 12th house. And this will also speak somewhat to the domicile of the planet. So that's the sign that it is at home in. Think Mars, Aries, Scorpio, Sun, Leo, and so on. So we'll talk about each planet and its domiciles in the 12th. But to get started, we need to establish what the 12th house even is about. Now, this question of what the 12th house is about gets hotly contested in the astrological world. Is it imprisonment and enemies and sickness? Is it addiction and self-undoing? Is it dreams and fantasies and imagination? Well, my answer to that would be it can be anywhere on that spectrum. And we're really going to explore the spectrum in this first part and what it's all about. So I always think with big, confusing astrological topics, we go basic to make sense of it first. The 12th house is a cadent house. So there's three types of houses in a birth chart. You can have an angular house, which would be like the first house in this case. And the angle has a lot of action. It has a lot of energy and it has a lot of potential and freedom. So the 12th house is cadent to the first house of self. So the first house is about the energy of the self. Now, a succedent house, like the second house, is what's supporting that angle, right? That angle needs sustenance to keep the energy going, to keep it alive. That's the succedent house. It's supporting, right, the house. So the second house is about money, finances, and food, right? So that type of environment or theme supports the theme of self. The cadent house, meanwhile, takes somebody out of the angle. It kind of puts them on a bench, so to speak. It's like the break that you take from whatever that topic is. So if we're dealing with self, then the 12th house is the break we get from ourselves, which sounds really lovely, actually. Not always lovely. Let's explore that more. So with a cadent house, with a house that is falling away from the house of self, we're dealing with topics that cause somebody to vacate themselves. Now, I think a really good example of this is going to sleep at night. We are still in the realm of self, but we are falling away from our conscious selves, from our ego selves. And we're sort of drifting into this world where we don't have a say in what happens to us. In a dream every single night, anything can be thrown at you. And you might not have, invited that on, but there it is. So this is one of the main significations of the 12th house that I like, is it's the personal unconscious, because whatever takes us out of self, that's still in the realm of self, right, is like the personal unconscious. So it's your dreams, it's suppressed desires, it's things that we might not be able to take action on in a public, energized way. It's more the energy that's reserved underneath the surface that will find us through dreams. And also drug trips, or, if you are into any sort of tripping, will come up in your trip. So it's everything unconscious waiting to be revealed to us. Now, the other factor going on in the 12th house is that it's the joy of Saturn. So this is from the ancient joy scheme where each of the 7 traditional planets have a house that they join in. For the 12th, it's Saturn. Now, Saturn is about confinement and restriction and limitation. So this says also that the 12th house likes you being out of control. It likes you not having a say. It likes you being restricted in movement. And going back to that example of sleep, like, isn't that a great analogy, keeping in line with the Saturn piece of it? Because Saturn is like, you know, the body that's just laying there stuck when you're asleep, and the unconscious mind is doing its thing and you are just there, right? So there's something about the 12th house that it's both your unconscious, so it does belong to you, but then it's also Saturnian in that you can't control it. Okay, so that can be a lot of different things, right? That can be dreams. It can be ancestral wounds and issues. It can be things that the lineage didn't find access to. If we think about this in terms of enemies, usually I think that the 12th house is more the enemy from within, which isn't a part of you that actually is out to get you. It's a part of you that isn't seen. And so it's going to do whatever it has to do to get your attention, right? Now, this might manifest in another person, right? So the 12th house can also be, you know, because we're so locked out of it, we're not really allowed access to it. It can very easily show up in another person. And we can be like, oh, this really bothers me about them. But it's actually reflecting something in our 12th house. It's actually reflecting something in us that's a bit hidden away. The 12th house is, you know, we've covered dreams. We've looked at this enemies piece of it, imprisonment. What I find funny about that imprisonment descriptor is that it's a very self-reflexive descriptor, because in a way, the mind, you know, thoughts, the nature of thought, which just comes and goes, is pretty involuntary. We all are sort of prisoners to our minds. And that's another thing the 12th house rules is mindfulness, is like not changing your mind and the way it works, but becoming conscious of it. So oftentimes what will happen with the 12th house is through events that are usually on the mental, spiritual plane that happen out of our control, right? Anxiety, depression, mental health issues, which can cause us to take some sorts of actions that end up in jail or rehab or wherever, right? Through those events, we're actually becoming more attuned to the inner workings of our mind. And before you feel bad for having a 12th house, remember that everybody has a 12th house with a planetary ruler placed somewhere else in the chart. So you could have nothing in the 12th house and the sign Gemini is there, but Mercury is going to be in a part of your chart. And that part of your chart is going to describe your personal unconscious. So your fears, the things you suppress, the things that aren't available to you in daily life, that might come out in dreams, that might come out in any sort of liminal or unconscious state. And they help direct your attention back towards them. So that you can integrate them and become more conscious. I think that the aim of 12th house planets is not to get you to necessarily action them. And this is what's really unique about cadent houses, right? Which are like the 9th, the 3rd, the 6th, and the 12th, is that they're not action heavy houses. That's the 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th. Those are your action houses, with succeedent being second. Your cadent houses are where the least action happens. Especially the 12th house, because the 12th house is about becoming conscious. It's about having internal realizations about your own mind. It's about things that are unfolding on that mental or spiritual level. In the ancient schools, it was actually called the house of bad daimon, while the 11th house was the house of good daimon, daimon being spirit. So bad daimon is kind of the bad shit that is in us, the scary stuff, the not so great stuff to deal with on a spiritual, mental level that we gain consciousness around. Because the thing about that imprisoned piece or that Saturn piece is that it's also about long time. So things in the 12th house will take a long time often to be made conscious. And I think that the more you engage with your 12th house, you can certainly speed this process up, but sometimes it just doesn't work that way. And isn't that so true of most of our mental health issues or struggles in life, or anything on that mental level? Is like usually it takes a lot of time for us to understand it, to understand the greater lesson. And I think your 12th house has a lot of important lessons to teach you in this way. The last indicator I'm going to give before I go into planets is career. Now, this is a very new signification of the 12th house, but I think it makes sense because it's the top half of the chart. It's the first house on the top half of the chart. The top half of the chart is the solar half of the chart. So it's about the public and it's about dealing with other people. And, the 10th house is very connected to the 4th house, which is about family. So I think of the 10th as more how you nurture your own inner family. It's how you create authority from within. The 11th house is your friendships, and it's connected to the 5th house, which is about children. So it's more of like how you enjoy life as an adult, how you enjoy the world and find joy with other people. The 12th house is connected to the 6th house, which is the only house in the chart that's about work. If you see where I'm going with this, it's the only house that's about work. I mean, we give that to the 10th sometimes and the 2nd, but the 6th house is work, right? And the 12th house is connected to that in some way. So being the house of your unconscious mind, of mysteries, of things that take a long time, I think that often our calling or our purpose can feel this way to us. Often life itself is just this big mystery, is really this big 12th house experience of just moving into the unknown and not really knowing. And often I find that when we surrender to the 12th house, we arrive in some way at this greater purpose that via the 6th house, we're here to work into the world. We're here to bring into manifestation. That's one way of explaining it. Another way you could look at it is if you do look at signs in relation to houses, and associate Neptune, the planet Neptune, with the 12th house. Neptune would be about the masses and the collective unconscious. And so if it's in the 12th house, or if you associate it with the 12th house, then you can also see this as a place where you can serve other people. I think the 12th house career, though, specifically would deal with some sort of suffering or people who, need to feel heard or seen on some big level. So it's not always going to be significant of career. It depends on what you want to do as a career, right? If you want to be a financial accountant, you would look to what's in your 8th house, versus if you want to be a mental health practitioner, you might want to consider what's in your 12th house. So that's the deal with the 12th house. So it covers a lot of terrain. And through this terrain I've established, I'm going to now move each of the 7 traditional planets onto that land and analyze how they behave. Okay, so if we put Mars in the 12th house, and this would also count as Aries or Scorpio from a broad overview perspective. When you're putting Mars in the 12th house, you are probably somebody who has put your anger on hold. Or it's something that you're not even conscious about. Anger was not welcome, perhaps in your family. You don't allow it in because it could rock the boat. It can make people upset. I mean, anger is a scary feeling, Mars is also taking ourselves seriously and getting motivated and choosing a direction. You could second guess your direction. You could second guess your motivation. Your motivation might not be super clear to you. And when it's in the 12th house, you have to search really deep in the dream realm, in the realm of suspense, where you're kind of suspended there. You have to pay attention to your visions and your imagination for a sense of drive. Your drive could be very imaginative. Mars in the 12th, Aries, Scorpio, could also mean that your life direction takes a while to pan out. It could take a long time to kind of learn to stand your ground and to say, I'm taking my life here now. Like that sort of dimension, right, of Mars, because Mars is about the fighter, the willpower, the warrior. It's like this is something that just couldn't necessarily feel super organic to you. Masculine energy also could be hard for you to access or could be a little bit repressed unintentionally. I think that's another thing about the 12th house is that most of it is unintentionally not conscious yet. It becomes conscious over time. So with this situation of Mars in the 12th house, you're somebody who I think would really benefit from getting in touch with your life direction, your motivation, your anger through exercise. Often when we do exercise, our minds clear and we're able to get to the unconscious quicker. Also, sleep for anything in the 12th house will connect you deeper with that realm. But I think what Mars in the 12th says is that activity that gets your heart pumping or, taking risks is actually going to reveal your deeper motivations. It's almost like with Mars in the 12th house or Aries or Scorpio, you're going to have to jump into something, whether you like it or not, and then it'll be revealed to you. So what this kind of sucks actually in a way, because it's like not until you take the action will the unconscious information come. So it's like, you might not like working out. Well, you're going to have to work out. You might not want to choose a direction. You're going to have to choose a direction because once you do, you're going to actually learn then whether it's right for you. This can be really hard because it can feel like that Eight of Swords tarot card with the blindfold, and she's walking in a direction. She has to choose a direction, but she just can't see what it's going to turn out as. So these people have to get comfortable taking risks, and they have to get comfortable, going outside of, the pace they prefer and all of that. Okay, Venus in the 12th house, Taurus and Libra as well broadly. So, Venus in the 12th house is interesting. So, you're a person who could just not feel super in touch when it comes to who you befriend. So, these people are going to just kind of enter relationships naturally. They're just going to sort of fall into them. Like, everywhere you go, you're just, falling into this relationship, falling into that relationship. Right? And these relationships at times can feel kind of awkward or uncomfortable. You could feel sometimes like, there's a person around, but you're not really seen. I think that that's a common feeling of Venus in the 12th house. Like you're there, but is the other person seeing you and understanding you? You could also find that your Venus is about not just relationships, but beauty, right? And artwork and expression and all the good stuff in life, right? Like sweetness. And it can also be about money too. So these people can also be really big spenders of money. It could actually take them time to establish financial independence or security. Or to also, because Venus's worth, it can also be your self-worth can take a long time to develop. Now, often the way you're going to learn this is through relationships. So it's going to be through other people that you're somehow met with this challenge around finances, around self-worth, around beauty, and around connecting in general, which I think this can be hard because Venus in the 12th house is like learning about how it subconsciously relates to people. And that can be really trippy. You can be like, wait, I have this weird thing about how I relate to others. And maybe it has to do with my own self-worth or my own self-esteem or my own finances or something like that. So through your relationships, you're going to be shown a lot about your internal beliefs, about what you're worth, about your beauty, and even about money. So relationships are your big spiritual teacher. And the more that you live in them, I think for you, you're going to have more challenging relationship experiences throughout your life, but they're not challenging in like a hard way, right? The 12th house, once again, isn't active. You know, it's not like somebody is literally going to fight with you. It's like you're going to be fighting with another person in your head, or there's going to be that grief around relationships. That's another thing of the 12th house, is that it's where we have to let go. So you can be really good at like letting go with people, but you also then must at times let go of them literally. And that can be hard because Venus is also what we wish to possess. So yeah. Okay, Mercury in the 12th house. So Gemini, Virgo in the 12th house as well. Okay. I'm smiling because I have Mercury in the 12th house. And I never play. This is very Mercury in the 12th house. I never planned on giving away so many of my placements, but it does help me articulate kind of what it's all about. Okay, so Mercury is the mind, the conversationalist, and the trickster. We'll just start with that. Okay, so when Mercury's in the 12th, it's fading. So your ideas and your communication and the way that you speak comes from a very unconscious place. You're somebody who can kind of slip into trance when you're writing, which is a fabulous gift. You know, you can kind of go anywhere with your words. You can kind of just let the waves carry your words somewhere else. One of the challenges of this is focus. You can easily lose focus or, lose track of time or lose track of the schedule, lose track of the thing you were trying to write or compose. And there can actually be a lot of like, you have one logical direction for something and then all of a sudden it changes and you can just feel like your plans are kind of never working out. Like they're just kind of always going under. And if you're somebody who does want to write or to communicate or to publish or to like say something, it's this weird balance of like you are drawing upon these unconscious realms, but you can't always count on them to be there. So it's like you're like the inspiration or the unconscious is really important to motivating your writing. And to your communication. This is another thing, is also when you're trying to communicate or get a point across, it can take longer. You might have to dig deeper. You might have to meditate more. Like you're not going to be the one who just comes out with the answer right away. Like you need contemplation, reflection time. A lot of messages, a lot of important things are going to come to you through sleep, dreams, and the unconscious. So you can have a lot to say when this is clear, and you might not have a lot to say otherwise. And you also might feel as though your logic doesn't really fit into the world because you're not really able to keep up with the logic, with the daily news, like it just kind of all fades. And so with Mercury in the 12th, Mercury can also be siblings. It can be friendship. In some cases, it can also be skills. So one of the things actually that you could be skilled at is drawing on the unconscious mind, is taking something from the unconscious mind and making it conscious or making it clear. But once again, you're working with the cycle of fading in and fading out. So one thing about the 12th house that Mercury in the 12th really shows us is that we don't always get the access we want to the answers or to the information. What can also happen with this, I would say, is that Mercury, because it's about research and wanting to know things, it can like look everywhere but the unconscious, right? So it's like, oh my God, I don't have the answer. Nothing is making sense. And that's because your ego logical mind, which Mercury kind of represents, doesn't hang out there. It hangs out in this place that's much more connected to the intuition and the mysterious realm. So you actually, with this placement, will struggle the more that you search for logical, reasonable answers or directions to things. You need to rely on something more fluid. Okay, the moon or Cancer in the 12th house. So you're somebody who's, first of all, the moon is our home, it's our security, and it's our environment. So when it's in the 12th house, that alone, your security, your home environment, could feel a little bit unstable. It could also mean that you create home within your head or within your mind, or, there's something that you belong to in this more existential or spiritual way, but you don't necessarily feel like you belong here in this world. The moon can also be our mother. So the mother could have also been a little bit out of the picture. The security could feel a little bit out of the picture. And that's because your security is supposed to come from these deeper realms. Your security is also going to be challenged over time, right? There's Saturn and the moon. So the moon, it's birth, it's innocence, it's childhood, it's the mother's breasts, and Saturn is like death and endings, So you might not always have the access that other people have to the comfort of home, of mother. And it can really mean that you actually have to access something maternal deep within. Gets me kind of emotional because it feels very like, there's some distance between you and the maternal comforting source here. In some cases, I've seen the moon in the 12th house speak to mothers who not just weren't always around, but didn't know how to be around, didn't really know how to be there. They were there, but it was like you in a way had to learn to live without this comfort. And so you might look to a lot of other sources for home, for security, for mothering. But what you find over time is that these things maybe don't work. And so you have to go deep into yourself and become a beacon of home to yourself. So the moon in the 12th house, I will say, is a hard moon or Cancer. It's hard because with something that's about fading, with something that's about endings, with something that's about unconscious, it's like, who is your mother? Who is your source? Who is your zone of comfort? How do you find that? The truth is, it can take you a bit of time to find this. And, the moon in evolutionary astrology is about the ego. It's about knowing thyself. It's about having a functional container through which you live life. So this really asks you to take care of yourself. And actually, the more that you take care of these 12th house things, your mental health, your subconscious, your inner workings, the parts of you that need tending, right? Like the more you'll feel at home, the more you'll feel safe, right? And maybe one of the most unconscious things about, because this is usually the Leo rising chart, is this is somebody who's like, well, I don't need to feel. I don't need to, a mother. I don't need that. But when it's in the 12th house, you're learning actually how you do need that vulnerability and safety. And it's going to come from going really deep within yourself. Okay. Last of the traditional planets is the sun in the 12th house, or Leo. So the sun is our expression, it's our ego, it's our vitality, it's our legacy. In the 12th house, this is fading in some sense. It's falling away. What this says immediately to me is you don't really have a say in your expression. Your expression has a say in you. So the light that lives, behind the eyes, that lives behind the body. Also, when the sun is rising in the 12th house, it's a glorious sight. If you've ever just stood outside around 6:45, 7 a.m., and you see the sun coming up, it's this energizing, revealing energy. So there's something about the sun in the 12th house that is very energized, but from behind the body. Like these people could, I don't know, if they're, say, Virgo rising. Oh, Virgo risings will have Leo in the 12th house. And you'll notice with the Virgo rising, like they are pretty, you'd expect them to be pretty chill and down to earth, but there's something there behind them that's very Leone, that's very full of light. So there's something about your light living, still very present, but it's a bit faded away. You might feel restricted in your self-expression. You might feel like it takes a lot of time to understand how to do this. You might have very vivid, because the sun brings light, right? You might have very vivid dreams or visions of what you want to do or what you want to create. There can be a lot of internal creativity and seeing. But then there's like, how do I get this out? How do I get people to appreciate this? Because the sun also deals with people appreciating us and basking in us. So you can also feel a bit underappreciated, feel a bit like the underdog with this placement. And just generally, there can be a lack of self-pride, which can be a beautiful quality, but it can also be a bit self-deprecating. And it can actually defeat something, which is the sun really wants to shine. Like there's something in you that really wants to express and be seen, but there could just be this continual, I'm no good, or do I really deserve it, right? So this can be challenging, but also beautiful and very humble. Like sun in the 12th house is a very humble quality to it. We might not always start out that way, right? Because something I haven't really hit on is how the 12th house can be things that happen automatically, right? Just like dreams. So actually you can have a very big ego with this placement, or you can have a very big like entitlement to express yourself. And over time you learn, oh, that's not what the world actually owes me. And it's that sun in the 12th house. It's like trying to get out and express itself and be seen. But time and time again, it's like you feel like you're failing or something. But actually it's just learning about how to, because the 12th house, right, this kind of Saturnian realm, it's about learning how your light would be best used. Oh my God, and this is something I absolutely have to talk about with the 12th house. And this is great to conclude all of these passages on the 12th house with. The 12th house is about service. Now, we talked about this a little bit at the beginning with, okay, the 6th house is work, so then what is the 12th house? Well, it's the greater meaning maybe that our work is driven by, right? The deeper thing we can serve others with, the deeper struggles and pains. Suffering goes in the 12th house because suffering is involuntary. It affects every single person personally, but it's not up to you, So, service. Why service? Service takes us outside of the self. It takes us out of the first house. It takes us out of the ego. It puts us in a place that's 12th house-like because we're present. We're here offering our vessel, but we're not in charge. We're not in charge of, if we go somewhere and serve in a soup kitchen, we're not in charge of if that soup kitchen is in a natural disaster and that natural disaster wipes us out. If we do art with children who are in the hospital, we're not in charge of whether those kids will live or die because of the art we do. It literally does not matter. Oh my God, I just remember I forgot Jupiter and Saturn. We're going to get to those in a minute. Oh my gosh, I was only thinking in terms of the inner planets, of course. But that's a quick sidebar, okay? Service, because service is something you do with yourself, but you're ultimately out of control of. Okay, all right, got to move on to Jupiter and Saturn. As a Mercury in the 12th house, I forget things. Okay, so, all right, Jupiter. So Pisces or Sag in the 12th house. Oof, okay. So, you might find that your optimism in situations fades kind of quickly. Like you could tend to be a bit of a realist, like, oh, is that really going to work? You're somebody who's like, yeah, pretends to be more on the material, real side of things. You're somebody who could see, I don't know, increases or abundance or a lot of something go away very quickly. So I don't know, let's say you have a relationship to the second house and you could see money go very quickly. Jupiter can also be release, and it can be joy, and it can be freedom. And you might find that time and time again, like you're put back into work, or it's like you don't have as prolonged a period of time to travel or expand or have, buckets of joy enter your life. Like these things kind of fade quickly. It can also show that you get a lot of joy and enthusiasm and expansion from having lots of sleep, from going to also distant lands is something we haven't covered really with the 12th house, but from going really far, that might really invigorate your sense of optimism. Also, if you do anything where you're kind of zoned out, like, I don't know, video games or something, service would also be a really great one here. It's like you could experience a great sense of optimism from being in service. Your spirituality could also take a long time to develop. So your relationship to a higher power or something greater, it's like that could be a lifelong thing. And you have the gift actually of knowing that starts within you. So you're somebody who could be very skeptical naturally of organized religion or things that are kind of en masse. And you could be somebody more interested in New Age spirituality, or I don't know, you might even be agnostic, and you might be searching for something that's a little bit more catered to your own freedom to determine what happens with your spirituality. So definitely with this placement, you also are going to expand in your alone time. The 12th house isn't necessarily alone time to me, because the 12th house is really where we are. It's like we're not connected fully to ourselves, but there's still a piece of ourself there. So I don't know, going to movie theaters or going to places where you're still with yourself, but you're kind of in this greater environment. That brings you out a bit, because Jupiter is like what will expand you. So meditation as well. I've seen Jupiter in the 12th house, Sag or Pisces, be great for meditation, because that gives you a sense of expansion, right? So 12th house topics actually give you expansion, which is great, because we all are going to have to face 12th house stuff in our life. We're all going to have to, be out of control at points where we're forced to surrender and let go. So these experiences can be really uplifting and expansive for you. All right, so we're going to end with Saturn. So Saturn or Aquarius, Capricorn in the 12th house. So Saturn is rules and boundaries and time and schedules and the future, the long term. One of the issues of having Saturn in the 12th or Aquarius, Capricorn is that you might just not realize that time is flying by. You might not realize that there is, that life isn't forever. And that sounds a little morbid to start out with, but it's true. It's like, time can kind of pass you by. Saturn is also our greater responsibility, duty, sacrifice for others. So I don't want to say that these people don't sacrifice themselves for others, but I feel like it could not be obvious where we need to. We might put off responsibilities. We might put off long-term commitments. Like, you think of Saturn in the 12th actually as somebody who would be like very responsible, but I've actually observed that Aquarius or Capricorn in the 12th house, it can actually be not being clear on what somebody's responsibilities are, or just simply not wanting to take any on. It's kind of like, well, I'll deal with it tomorrow or something. Kind of like Mercury in the 12th. It's like you kind of, the logical stuff fades by the wayside, which is great, because it means, you don't have to, really be worried about Saturn things. But what can happen is then Saturn shows up at some point in his own home and starts to say, like, gives you, I think the thing about having Saturn in the 12th house is like, it gives you big wake up calls in over long periods of time. So it's like you might have some experience. It's like, oh shit, I really gotta budget better, or I really gotta, I don't know, commit to this thing, or I really need to give this up or cut ties with this. Like those things happen over long periods of time. And then suddenly you could like make these big changes. Another way Saturn in the 12th house can manifest to motivate your change is through depression. Because Saturn, Mars is more that anxiety, which I wish I talked about with Mars. Like you might have kind of that anxiety indicator that you need to go do something physical, or you need to go do something out. With Saturn, it's often, what do they say? It's like depression it's like anxiety, it's like usually like about the future, or depression's about the past or something. So it's like something from the past also might not be processed, and then depression comes and it kind of forces you to reconcile with something from the past. And that requires a letting go and a surrender to like who the past has made you. Because to me, Saturn is the things that kind of shape us into who we are. I think of Saturn as old granite or old rock that's been tossed around in the waves for thousands of years, and it's gorgeous and it's beautiful, but it's also kind of sad. It's like, why are some rocks smaller than others? Why are some rocks, more beautiful than other, whatever, right? Your view is. The thing about Saturn is that it's shaped by time. And so in the 12th house, you could just have these moments in life where time catches up to you, something catches up to you, and you have to release it, or you have to go through a period of depression or something like that. Saturn can also be isolation. So one of the things I've actually seen with Saturn in the 12th, and I don't want to be projecting my opinions, but I have to just share what's on my mind, is that it can also represent a distance from yourself. So when you have Saturn in the 12th house, there can actually be tremendous fear I've seen around facing something very buried deep within, or something from dreams, or addressing something from an unconscious thing. So also knowing, that your structures and your safety, which Saturn can be, they won't dissolve. They will actually get stronger the more you do that deep inventory work on yourself, on your subconscious mind. Okay, so I would love to do Uranus and Neptune and the North Node and Pluto, but unfortunately, that's all I have time for today. It's all my camera probably has capacity for. I'm working on getting a new camera for these sorts of videos. But I really hope that was helpful if you have 12th house planets, or, we all have a sign. And that's the last thing I'll say is that check the sign in your 12th house. If you have no planets there, say you have Capricorn in the 12th house, well, where is your Saturn, right? That Saturn placement is going to be bringing in these 12th house experiences, or representing the lesson of Saturn in the 12th house. Even if you have Saturn in, say, the 5th house, but you have Capricorn in the 12th, the 5th house Saturn is going to pertain to what's in your subconscious, what you're working through on that unconscious level, what you're, digging deeper for. So, comment down below if you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have any questions. As always, I'm available for readings. So link in the description down below, and social media handles are there as well. So thanks for tuning in, and hopefully see you guys talking about the 11th house next.